Hi everybody, this is Johnnie. I'm sharing this workbook for the edTPA. You can find this workbook for you to use in a link below in the description. This workbook is Literacy Instruction Task 2, and it's the commentary. You will find every single one of the prompts for this commentary task. You will find my directions and support, lots of starters to help you write. I'll be giving some definitions along the way as you need, and again, lots of starters to help you do well by this. So let's begin. Literacy Instruction Commentary. In Literacy Instruction Task 2, you will write a commentary responding to the prompts below. Your commentary should be no more than 6 single-spaced pages, including the prompts. If needed, insert no more than 2 additional pages of supporting documentation for the video recordings at the end of the commentary. Examples, digital copies of indiscernible materials or transcriptions of inaudible comments. These additional pages do not count toward the commentary page limit noted above. So the very first prompt is, which lesson or lessons are shown in the video clips? Identify the lessons by lesson plan number. This is by far the easiest prompt, so let's do this. Plainly state which lesson or lessons are in the video clips. Set the reviewer up to easily refer to your videos in your responses below. Videos, videos, videos throughout this particular commentary for Task 2. You need to be referring to them all the time. They are the evidence of your teaching. So let's start with this starter. Video clip 1 comes from lesson. State the lesson number. Video clip 2 comes from lesson. State the lesson number. Again, this is an easy prompt. Straight off, just giving the lesson numbers for the video clips. For prompt 2, promoting a positive learning environment, refer to scenes in the video clips where you provided a positive learning environment. So for A, how did you demonstrate mutual respect for, rapport with, and responsiveness to students with varied needs and backgrounds, and challenge students to engage in learning? So if they give you a list, you want to respond to each element. As you can see, there's mutual respect, there's rapport with, there is responsiveness to students with varied needs and backgrounds, and finally, challenging students. So each one of these 4 needs to be addressed. And definitions. Rapport. A close and harmonious relationship in which the people or groups understand each other's feelings or ideas and communicate well with each other. And respect, a positive feeling of esteem or deference for a person and specific actions and conduct representative of that esteem. Respect can be a specific feeling of regard for the actual qualities of the one respected. It can also be conduct in accord with a specific ethic of respect. Rude conduct is usually considered to indicate a lack of respect, disrespect, whereas actions that honor somebody or something indicate respect. Note that respectful actions and conduct are culturally defined and may be context dependent. So we're going to be thinking about these 4, and we want to add a reference to a video clip for each one. So here's starters. You can see this first one's about respect. I demonstrated respect for my students by, and follow with describing how you took up their good ideas or really listened to what they had to say, gave them a choice that mattered to them, and then of course give a video reference. This is all about evidence, video, video, video. Second one is about rapport. I showed rapport with my students by, and then you want to follow with describe how you brought in something that mattered to them, that interested them, part of their home life into the learning, something funny or caring into your teaching. And again, a video clip reference. Next one's about responsiveness. I showed responsiveness to the varied needs of my students by, follow with give details for different groups of students. I was responsive to the needs of my student with an IEP by, this made a positive learning environment for the student by, I was responsive to my ELL students by, this made a positive learning environment for them by, and then of course follow up with a video clip reference. Okay, and lastly, challenging. I challenged my students by, and then follow with describe how you pushed them to think more deeply, move to higher order thinking, ask them a bit more, and then follow, of course, with the video clip reference. Now remember, there were 4 things here: mutual respect, rapport, responsiveness, challenging students. And as you can see in the starters, respect, rapport, responsiveness, and challenge. And of course, video clip references along the way. So let's go to 3. Engaging students in learning. Refer to examples from the video clips in your responses to the prompts. Explain how your instruction engaged students in developing an essential literacy strategy and related skills. This is all about, again, evidence from the video clips. Think about this in 2 ways. This is my suggestion. First way, how your teaching involved and engaged students in the essential literacy strategy and related skills. What teacher moves did you do? What kinds of materials did you set out? How did you model? How did you involve students in developing an essential literacy strategy? The modeling is going to come up in another prompt too, but you might as well write about it here too. So this is about what you're doing. The second one is how your students practice and use the essential literacy strategy and related skills. So you might want to write about what they did with it, not just what you showed them. So this gets into the fullness of the engagement in the essential literacy strategy. So here are my starters. With a focus on your teaching, to engage students in developing the essential literacy strategy, I describe the teaching or teaching activity you did to involve them, with a reference to the video. Again, to engage students in developing related skills, describe the teaching or teaching activity you did to involve them, again with a reference to the video. So this is all about your teaching. Let's go to the students now. To engage my students to practice and use the essential literacy strategy, and then you want to talk here about what students are doing. So the video should show kids really involved in working the essential literacy strategy and related skills. And here again, this is a focus on related skills here. To engage my students to practice and use the related skills, I describe how students practiced and used the related skills with a timestamp. This practice part comes up in another prompt, but you might as well describe it now. Let's go back up to the prompt here. How did you engage students in developing an essential literacy strategy and related skills? Remember, it's both essential literacy strategy and related skills. Okay, so how your teaching involved and engaged students in the essential literacy strategy and related skills. How your students practiced and used the essential literacy strategy and related skills. For B, describe how your instruction linked students' prior academic learning and personal, cultural, and community assets with new learning. In the first task, you gave lots of good attention to prior academic learning, and you also gave good attention to personal, cultural, and community assets. And these are the 2 big important ideas here. You want to address both of them fully. So I've broken down the starters for each of them. So we're going to start with prior academic learning. Here's a definition. Prior academic learning and prerequisite skills includes students' content knowledge and skills, as well as academic experiences developed prior to the learning segment. So here's some thoughts on this. Describe how your teaching brought in students' prior learning on the topic. Consider both lessons this year leading up to the learning segment and prior learning from prior grades on the topic. And I suggest you be generous in what you consider prior academic learning. So a starter. Students' prior academic learning mattered to my teaching. In this lesson, students worked from their prior understanding of, describe some prior knowledge or skills students brought into the lesson that set them up to engage the essential literacy strategy. And of course, give a video reference. And this might be a way of adding to it, making it better. In my teaching, I brought in students' prior understanding of, describe this. This connected to our work on the essential literacy strategy by, and describe it. And this can be seen in video clip number at timestamp. Okay, so this is all about prior academic learning for the starter. Okay. So there were 2 parts here. Prior academic learning. Now we need to think about personal, cultural, and community assets. And here, we'll think about it here. Assets, defined. Personal, refers to specific background information that students bring to the learning environment. Students may bring interests, knowledge, everyday experiences, family backgrounds, and so on, which a teacher can draw upon to support learning. Cultural refers to the cultural backgrounds and practices that students bring to the learning environment, such as traditions, languages, and dialects, worldviews, literature, art, and so on, that a teacher can draw upon to support learning. And lastly, community refers to common backgrounds and experiences that students bring from the community where they live, such as resources, local landmarks, community events and practices, and so on, that a teacher can draw upon to support learning. Okay, so here's a thought. This is perhaps the most challenging part of this task. You need to be generous again with how you understand assets. And here's some thoughts on these. So for personal, do talk with your mentor teacher about the students. What kinds of everyday experiences might they have with stories and texts that you might refer to here? How do their interests in the world, not just school, show up in your teaching in the learning segment? Under cultural, what stories or ways of shared talk and shared language do your students experience, extended into their lives outside of school? Consider references to familiar stories, turns of phrase, ways of speech in the language students bring to their learning. And under community, what is part of their world beyond school? Consider sports, art events, libraries, community gatherings, holidays, and cultural events shared. Consider libraries and other shared community assets as resources as well. How do any of these show up in your teaching? So starters for this, for assets. And again, use any of these more than once as makes good sense. So for the first one, in my instruction, I incorporate students' interest in, interest. Describe what your students are interested in that connects to the learning goals of your lesson. You might say, I incorporate this interest because. Describe how you make this matter to their learning with a video reference. In my instruction, I incorporate students' cultural backgrounds. We've done interest, now we're thinking about cultural backgrounds. Describe aspects of students' cultural and language backgrounds that you give attention to in your teaching. These cultural backgrounds matter because. Describe how you make this matter to their learning with a video reference. So we've done interest, cultural backgrounds. Now let's think about community assets. In my instruction, I incorporate community assets by, and then describe the community assets that you give attention to in your teaching. You might say, these cultural backgrounds matter because. Describe how you make this matter to their learning. Again, with a reference to the videos. So again, this was about community and cultural assets, but the main prompt was rather big. So describe how your instruction linked to students' prior academic learning. We talked about that here. And personal, cultural, and community assets with new learning. And that's what we talked about here with good starters. Deepening student learning during instruction. Refer to examples from the video clips in your explanations. Explain how you elicited and built upon student responses to promote thinking and apply the essential literacy strategy using related skills to comprehend or compose text. Two pieces here, elicited and built upon. These two show up in the rubrics kind of strongly, so do give good attention to both of these. I'll give a definition here for eliciting. Eliciting means to bring something out. You want to describe how you brought students to tell you and to show you what they were thinking and what they were learning. Okay, it's the kind of questions you ask, the kind of prompts you give, the kinds of exercises or requirements on a worksheet or exercise somewhere. How are you pulling out to make visible what they're thinking and what they're understanding? Built upon or built on is much more straightforward. Built on means taking what they tell you and show you and pushing their learning further. This can be done through questions that ask them a little more or offering a connection or new idea to what they offered that moves their learning forward. So a student shares something with you. Instead of saying that's just good or all right, you say, well, let's think about that a little bit more. What does this connect us to? How have we thought about this before in a different way? That's all building on what students have offered you. Okay? This is all eliciting and building on students' responses. Here are some starters. Let's start with eliciting. I elicited my students' thinking by, and then you want to follow with describe the question, prompt, activity that set up your students to tell or show you what they were thinking or learning, with a video reference. Again, with eliciting, my students told me or showed me. Describe what students told or showed you. This can be seen in a video clip. And then following with this, after you've done that, whatever they've offered, you can follow with, after you've shared what they showed you, this told me that. What did you understand about their learning from what they shared? With a video reference. Okay? So that's all eliciting. So let's think about building on. I built upon students' responses when, describe what students offered and how you built on what was offered, with a video clip reference. Continue. This built on what students told me, showed me by, and describe how what you gave back to students added to their learning, took their understanding further. And then a video reference. In taking what my students offered me and building on that, my students learned more about, made connections to, thought more deeply about, and then a video reference. So let's go back up to the prompt. Prompt is about eliciting. That means getting students to share with you what they're thinking and knowing. And then building on is your response to that that furthers the learning. Gave you definitions here. And here's some starters for eliciting, and here's some starters for building on. Let's go to B. Explain how you modeled the essential literacy strategy and supported students as they practiced or applied the strategy to comprehend or compose text in a meaningful context. A couple pieces here. You need to think about modeling the essential literacy strategy. You need to think about supporting the students. And you need to think about how they got to practice or apply the strategy. So there are three things here, address all three. Three things here, address all three. And here's some direction from me. Modeling can be showing or demonstrating how to use the essential literacy strategy. Best to do this modeling in interaction with students, having them do the essential literacy strategy with you after you've shown them how. So this is not just about you lecturing or telling them things. This is about you in conversation with them as you're giving them more and more ideas about the essential literacy strategy. So that's modeling, followed by supporting. Supporting students can be in-the-moment feedback or direction you give students as they engage the essential literacy strategy. Supporting can also look like tools, slideshows, anchor charts, guides, peer or other adult support. And then lastly, practicing. Practicing should be students doing the essential literacy strategy. This does not have to be perfect. They are practicing as they learn. Okay, so let's remember, we're thinking about the modeling, the supporting, and the practicing. So here's some starters for modeling. I modeled the essential literacy strategy by, describe how you model the essential literacy strategy with a video reference. Continue. In order for students to better understand the essential literacy strategy, I modeled, describe what you modeled, and then a video reference. Okay? So this is modeling. Let's continue with supporting. I supported students' use of the essential literacy strategy by, and then follow with, describe how you set students up to engage the essential literacy strategy, and follow with this, students were supported in the use of the essential literacy strategy. Describe how you supported students to engage the essential literacy strategy with a video reference. And lastly, practicing. Students practice the essential literacy strategy when they, and describe when they were practicing it with a video reference. Again, for this prompt, three things: modeling, supporting, practicing. Address all three. Here's some ways to think about all three. And I've given you starters for modeling, supporting, and practicing. So let's go to 5 now. Analyzing teaching. Refer to examples from the video clips in your responses to the prompts. What changes would you make to your instruction for the whole class and for students who need greater support or challenge to better support student learning of the central focus? And so we're thinking about changes, but we're also thinking about whole class and then students who need something more. And the ways to think about students who need something more are offered here. Students with IEPs, 504 plans, English learners, struggling readers, underperforming students, and perhaps gifted students. So this clearly asks for two considerations. The first one is, what changes would you make to better understand learning for the whole class? And the second one is, what changes would you make to better student learning for students who need greater support and challenge? So two pieces here, all wrapped around challenges. You want to address both and connect to evidence in your videos. So here's some starters, and this is for whole class to start with. In my lesson, the whole class struggled with, and so you're making a case for why you need a change, and so then you're going to show this in the video. In a future lesson, I would change, and you describe the change you would make. I would do this because, and then follow with, what is the change meant to make better? This makes good sense because, give a reason why. This should, describe how this should better students' learning. And then, I would change my instruction for the whole class by, describe. I would do this because, and then describe what it was students were misunderstanding that needs to be addressed differently, with a reference to what was going on in the lesson. So this was whole class. Let's follow with students who need greater support. In my lesson, my student with IEP, or my student, either with IEP, ELLs, or other students who need something different, struggled with, and then describe that. Follow with, this can be seen in video clip number at a timestamp. In a future lesson, I would change, describe what you would change. I would do this because, what is the change meant to make better? This makes good sense because, give a reason why. This should, and describe how this would better students' learning. Okay, so this is students who need greater support. Continue. I would change my instruction for my student with, and whatever need they have, by, follow with a description. I would do this because, give a reason why, and describe what it was students were misunderstanding that needs to be addressed differently. And then again, video reference. So this is all students who need greater support. And lastly, students who need greater challenge. To address the needs of my students who need greater challenge, I would change my lesson by, and then describe. This can be seen in video clip number at timestamp, and follow with, describe what it was students were misunderstanding that needs to be addressed differently, or be challenged. So this prompt was all about analyzing teaching. You're thinking about changes, and you want to think about the whole class, and then students who need greater support or challenge. I've given you starters for both the whole class, students who need greater students who need greater support, and also students who need greater challenge. So that should support you well for 5A. For 5B, why do you think these changes would improve student learning? Support your explanation with evidence of student learning and principles from theory and/or research. So I'm going to say you need to refer to the changes you described above in the last prompt. Okay, there are three necessary parts to this one: improvement, evidence, theory. Okay, so let's start with explain why your changes should improve student learning. And then follow, give a reason for making the change based on student work. This is evidence from the work or assessment samples or evidence from video clips. And lastly, connect your reasons to theory or research. So here's some starters. Use them as you need. My change in instruction where I, describe the change, should improve student learning. I saw in my students' work, give a descriptive of what you saw, the evidence, and then again follow with video. As you can see, video clip number at timestamps. All right. This I saw in my students' work should also be references to the sample work too, so the actual work they've submitted. So both of those things are evidence. So you've got students' work samples, but you also got video clips. This change will address this. I believe it will do so by describe how the change will improve learning. This change fits with the learning theory. This learning theory, describe the theory and give a citation. So again, the change, where you saw it in student sample work or in video clips. And then you need to give a justification for this. I will do so by, but then you need to connect that justification to theory. Okay? So here's another take on this. I believe I would improve student learning by changes in instruction. I will make this change because of what my students showed in their learning. I found that students, and this is a reference to work samples or video clips again, describe a student challenge or misunderstanding. The change I make, describe the change, should improve student learning by, describe what the change would make better. And this follows learning theory. According to, give a theory citation. This should improve student learning by describe. Let's go back up here. Why do you think these changes would improve student learning? Support your explanation with evidence of student learning. Think about the work samples, student work samples, assessment samples, all of those things, and then connect to principles from theory and or research. Okay, so those are all the prompts for task 2 commentary. Let's go over the literacy instruction rubrics. So let's start with rubric 6. How does the candidate demonstrate a positive literacy learning environment that supports students' engagement in learning? And I've broken this down. You always want to be thinking about level 3. So the candidate demonstrates rapport with and respect for students, and the candidate provides a positive, low-risk learning environment that reveals mutual respect among students. So I always break these down into necessaries. Think about this as a checklist. The first one says, show rapport with students, connecting with them about what they are thinking, sharing, and doing. This is rapport. Second one, show respect for students. Treat their ideas as having worth. Ask questions that respect that they should be challenged. Okay, so this is respect, rapport, respect. Next, describe what is going on in the classroom among students and how they are engaged in positive ways. So this is a positive, low-risk learning environment and about mutual respect among students. Describe how students are working to support one another's learning through mutual respect. So that's the bottom one as well. So I suggest that there are 4 elements to complete here. Use this as a checklist. To get to level 4, the candidate demonstrates rapport with and respect for students. Okay. Candidate provides a challenging learning environment that promotes mutual respect among students. So less passive, more active. To get to level 4, describe how you set up a positive learning environment, how you set out appropriate challenges for your students, and how you purposely set out opportunities for your students to work together to show mutual respect. For this is rubric 6. Let's go to rubric 7. How does the candidate actively engage students in integrating strategies and skills to comprehend or compose text? So level 3, students are engaged in learning tasks that address their understanding of, and notice this, essential literacy strategy for comprehending or composing text, related skills, and then it says candidate links prior academic learning to new literacy learning. So the focus here is on prior academic learning. You remember that prompt where we gave it really good attention. Okay? These are the necessaries for level 3. Remember, you have to hit all the levels 3 to get 3. Every one of these. So think of it as a checklist. Describe how students were engaged in the essential literacy strategy. Describe how students were engaged in related skills. So you see both of them. Because you see it's essential literacy strategy here, related skills here, you have to have both. Describe how prior academic learning was connected to learning what was learned in literacy. So this is this piece here. So 3 things. Treat this one as having 3 elements to complete. For level 4, students are engaged in learning tasks that integrate their understanding of, and you see essential literacy strategy and related skills again. but this is where it gets thicker. Well, also the difference is this one says address the essential literacy strategy and related skills. This says integrate, so that's the level up. For the second part about prior academic learning, look what goes on with level 4. Candidate links prior academic learning and personal, cultural, or community assets to new literacy learning. So that's the addition here. To get to level 4, describe how you embed and purposefully integrate the essential literacy strategy into your learning tasks. Embed and purposefully integrate the related skills into your learning tasks. So it's essential literacy strategy, related skills. Then it says link prior academic learning to new literacy learning. And then the addition, link personal, cultural, and community assets to new literacy learning. And that takes you to level 4. Let's go to Rubric 8. How does the candidate elicit student responses to promote thinking and apply the essential literacy strategy and related skills to comprehend or compose text? So this one's pretty straightforward. Level 3, candidate elicits student responses to support use of essential literacy strategy or related skills. Pay attention to the or, to comprehend or compose text. Remember this is, or look at how this is focused on eliciting, okay? Involve students, this is what you have to do. Involve students and have them tell you and show you how they understand and use the essential literacy strategy. So telling and showing you is about eliciting, right? Involve students and have them tell you and show you how they understand and use the related skills. Even though it says or here, I think you should do both, okay? Treat this one as having 2 elements to complete. To move to level 4, candidate elicits and builds on, pay attention to builds on, students' responses to explicitly portray, extend, or clarify essential literacy strategy and related skills to comprehend or compose text. So the difference here in level 4 is not just eliciting, it's also building on. It's not just essential literacy strategy or related skills, it's essential literacy strategy and related skills. To get to level 4, focus on how you encourage students to show and tell you what they understand, and then how you take what they offer to clarify, extend, build on that understanding. You must address both the essential literacy strategy and related skills. So this is Rubric 8. Let's go to Rubric 9. How does the candidate support students to learn, practice, and apply the essential literacy strategy for comprehending or composing text in a meaningful context? So for level 3, candidate models the essential literacy strategy to comprehend or compose text with limited opportunities for practice. The word practice matters a lot here. So the necessaries for level 3, describe how you model the essential literacy strategy. Follow with describe how students practice the essential literacy strategy. Okay? 2 things, modeling and practicing. Those are the 2 things that have to happen for level 3. Both of those get strengthened in level 4. Candidate explicitly teaches students how to apply the essential literacy strategy to comprehend or compose text and provides opportunities for guided practice. So you can see the extension here. So explicitly means much more direct teaching, making sure kids really see and understand the essential literacy strategy, and then of course much more focus on kids doing something with the essential literacy strategy through practice. To get to level 4, do describe how you explicitly teach the essential literacy strategy. Consider, in this lesson, I explicitly taught the essential literacy strategy by. That might be something you write in your commentary. Secondly, purposefully describe how students engaged and practiced the essential literacy strategy across lessons. Okay? Practice, practice, practice. That's the big one here. So you've got a model and you've got a practice. Just do it very explicitly and purposefully, and you can get to level 4. The last rubric for this task, Rubric 10, Analyzing Teaching Effectiveness. How does the candidate use evidence to evaluate and change teaching practice to meet students' varied learning needs? For level 3, candidate proposes changes that address students' collective learning needs related to the central focus. Candidate makes superficial connections to research and or theory. Collective means whole class. Superficial means you say something about theory. The 2 necessaries, Describe changes that would make the learning better for the whole class or most students. And then follow with connect the reasons for your changes to research or theory. Treat this one as having 2 elements to complete. To take it to level 4, candidate proposes changes that address individual and collective learning needs related to the central focus. Candidate makes connections to research and/or theory. So notice the differences. 3 is about collective learning needs, which means whole class. Level 4 is whole class and individual learning needs. The prompt sets you up for this one really, really well. Then instead of making superficial or just kind of thin references to theory, you need to make better references, more explicit, more thoughtful references to theory. So to get to level 4, add to changes for the whole class, changes you would make for individual students, IEPs, ELLs, challenge students. And then this last piece, use research specific to literacy, not just general educational theory. Use research to justify the changes you suggest, and that will take you to level 4. So that's Rubric 10. We have one more thing to do, and I'd like to share with you an exemplar. So this is an actual submission. It did really well. I want to give you the best. This is a strong example. Yours does not have to look this great to do well. If yours is 80% of the quality of the one below, you will be fine. Pay attention to how the responses are absolutely specific to the prompts. Okay, the prompt says something, the response is totally tailored to it. Notice how key terms from the prompts are woven into the responses. So pay attention to those as I go through this. So for the first one, which lesson or lessons are shown in the video clips? First statement is, which lessons are shown in the video clips? With some description here, video clip 1 and video clip 2. Going to 2, and let me make this so we can see it a little bit better. If we go to 2, refer to scenes in the video clips. So every place you see a gray box right now, that's a video clip reference. And this is about mutual respect, rapport, responsiveness to varied students with varied backgrounds, and challenge. So you see every place that this person writes about mutual respect, I've highlighted. Starting off with the first part, you can see video clip references and more about mutual respect. More respect shows up down here. So respect shows up across this response. Rapport with comes up. One way I displayed rapport, I display rapport. And then coming to the next one after rapport, responsiveness. And this is examples of responsiveness to students with varied needs. I demonstrate responsiveness and respect. I demonstrate responsiveness to my ELL students. So these are the specific students who need support, the varied needs. And the last one is about challenge. And in this response, you'll see toward the end, finally, I challenge students. I also challenge students. So you can see that here's the prompt. Every piece of the prompt that needs something is being addressed in the response below. So that's 2A. And this one is 3. Engaging students in learning, so 3A. Explain how your instruction engaged students in developing an essential literacy strategy and related skills. So you can see this one's broken down into essential literacy strategy, showing up again and again. And every time there's a description of the essential literacy strategy, there's a video clip reference. See the video clip references. And then a description of the related skills as well. Because remember, this is an and. You want to do both. So you've got the related skills, and video clips throughout. For B, describe how your instruction linked students' prior academic learning and personal, cultural, and community assets with their new learning. 2 things, prior academic learning. Again, you see references here. Access their prior knowledge, linked with students' prior academic learning. This activates their prior knowledge. I connect this prior knowledge, connections to prior knowledge. I then connect this prior academic learning. And then references to personal, cultural, and community assets in this first part. The students can personally connect. Then thinking about language and community here. So addressing both of these for B. And under 4, again, examples from video clips, you can see where those are. Eliciting. drawing out students' ideas, building on, furthering the learning. And so throughout both the clips, elicited and built upon, eliciting here, I elicited students to think more deeply. I elicited responses from students. I elicited a response. I repeated this eliciting process again, so eliciting shows up. Built on student responses. I built on this response by asking. I then built on our conversation, so both eliciting and built on are addressed. That's 4A. Let's look at 4B. This is about modeling and supporting and practicing. So modeling, I model the essential literacy strategy. I use student input to help me model, so modeling shows up here. Support shows up. I also supported students. I supported students. My support, I supported her in brainstorming. And then practiced or applied. Students practiced or applied the strategy by writing a page of their narratives while they practiced applying. And remember, there's video clip references so that you can see the kids actually practicing. So that's 4B. Let's look at 5A. What changes would you make to your instruction for the whole class and or for students who need greater support or challenge? So you can see the changes show up here. If I had the opportunity to reteach, there would be many changes. Changes show up down here as well. And this first paragraph is mostly dedicated to better support the whole class, to better support the whole class, so whole class. And you can see the second paragraph down here, supporting students with specific needs, English language learners, students who need greater support, gifted students, struggling writers, and then more description of changes that would be made and for which groups of kids who would get that kind of change. So again, hitting every single piece of the prompt. And for B, this is about theories and evidence of student learning. So you can see in red, I noticed that only two students were actually using the dialogue in their writing. So this is evidence. Okay, and so this person gives this evidence from student learning and practice through the entire learning segment reveals. So you want to refer to both video clips and students' work samples. So that's evidence. And then principles for theory or research. You can see this person's offered quite a lot. Gibbons shows up a lot for literacy, and a description why here. This Pearson and Gallagher comes up, Vygotsky, Gibbons again, connecting here, Gibbons and ELLs, more Gibbons, and then the last reference down here, and then followed with a bibliography. So for this last one, you can see both the evidence of student learning, but also connections to theory or research. So this exemplar should help you quite a lot. Remember, you don't have to write it as it's written here. This is very, very strong, but you do need to pay attention to how well this person addressed every element of the prompt and used the language of the prompts to make really strong entries. So let's go back up to the top. This was a workbook for Literacy Instruction Task 2, focusing on the commentary. I offered you every single prompt. I also offered you explanations and lots of good starters along the way. So I do hope that this was helpful for you, and I wish you well on your TPA.